Good morning. Well, after kind of a sleepless night, I got up in the middle of the night and started blogging again. And I haven't blogged for a long time, but I must have revived some to think that I would blog. And I just couldn't go to sleep unless I did it. But this is a result of, the times. Here we had an election in South Carolina, primary, trying to determine even who the candidate is going to be. I don't think but we have all kinds of very strong opinions, and naturally your family begins to have opposing, they have opposing opinions, and they come at you with these opposing opinions and conflict, and so pretty soon you can have nights like this quite often. So I promised people who came near my blog that I was going to get up and make this video. And I called the subject of my blog was when the religious people and the educated people clash, which is another big clash we have going on that we didn't used to have as much, as bad as we do now. And I'll talk about why I think this bigger clash came about. It came about when abortion was legalized in 1973. Because up to then, abortion was illegal. So the religious who didn't believe in abortion and, pro-life people like myself weren't having a bad time at all because the law favored our position. And, we just took it for granted. I mean, I was raised in the Mormon church. The Mormon church is very strongly against abortion. So I was just like all the other Mormons, just took it for granted that that was not a belief that was probably ever going to be legal. Well, all of a sudden, the Supreme Court did their surprise move and legalized it all across the nation. Changed, a complete change. Well, then the media and what you'd call a more educated people in society were now faced with legalized abortion. And they found out, just like anybody's found out, that in history, that going up against a law is a lot tougher. So they all accepted it. It's the law. And what do you think happened back in the days of slavery? When it was not unlawful to own slaves, then people accepted it of all kinds. People you wouldn't ordinarily think. Religious people. All kinds of people accepted it. Because it was so tough to go against the law. So the Supreme Court helped bring about this almost permanent state of conflict by legalizing it, regardless of whether it was not regarded as right by a lot of churches. So they didn't, when this law was passed, they didn't drop everything and say, they believed, like Catholic Church has fought abortion according to their claims since the 3rd century. And so they weren't going to all of a sudden change just because it was law. They were going to rally around and decide that now they had to fight the law because it was wrong. So, what grounds for conflict? Greater conflict than we've ever had in this country, ever. And of course, as a pro-life or believer that it is wrong, I never had it so rough. But neither did other people in going against the law. So all the media went pro-choice. Why? You don't expect all your newspaper reporters and columnists and all kinds of people to suddenly go against the law. They're just not going to do it. And so you found all kinds of columnists jumping on this bandwagon and finding reasons why this was all right. And this is what, so this came about what they call, what the pro-life people, activists call a media bias. Media bias in that they never fought this. Not like the Catholics who went right ahead fighting it. They went along with all of the abortion advocates and their justifications who immediately came to the forefront. And then we have a number of very powerful women in this country who, like Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, who've been big abortion advocates. And this, again, brought about the phenomenon of the Democratic Party having a platform pro-choice. In other words, they're not even going to support a candidate who's not pro-choice. So they embraced pro-choice and acted like legalized abortion was the same thing as civil rights. In the 1960s, the Kennedys and the blacks made big strides in the civil rights legislation. Well, you think that giving black people more rights, making segregating practices making people more accountable for segregation is the same thing as the right to abort your unborn before birth. Is that the same thing? But you would think so. You would think so, just because the opposition, it was just like the people who were pro-choice began to look on the churches as villains because they didn't go along with this. And they criticized very much the attitudes of them. So they were on the defensive, so they began to fight even worse. And then that's when they begin to act like, well, we don't want a candidate who's going to come in there, a religious fanatic, and try to overturn Roe versus Wade, and take away a woman's right to choose, just all kinds of ideas like this started being fostered. And these years have been very tough for everybody, I'd say. They've been tough for the educated who pride themselves on knowing best and fighting the ignorance of the religious and these fundamentalist sects that are, they're not in the modern age at all. They're not educated. And then here's the religious people who are used to having defend themselves to the educated, and now they're expected to bring the educated back, who have abandoned religion completely in order to, according to their beliefs, religious beliefs, to embrace abortion and call it good and want to protect it. Even from hardly being able to accept it, they go to, well, we have to protect this right that we finally gained, as though something precious had finally been accomplished. We've finally been able to legally go down and get an abortion. Well, so here all the ones who don't believe in it have had the job of trying to convince these educated people who have come to believe that they are a lot more infallible than these ignorant religious people, that they're wrong. Well, what a daunting task, and they've had a very hard time being convincing, keeping their thoughts together, developing their arguments, reasoning, trying to convince a person who's been to college and graduated and is now an abortion advocate, that's wrong? Oh, here's this gentleman going to sit down. He's halfway off, of course, which I don't like. And he's wearing some goofy glasses, which I might snatch off. If I were violent, I would. But he has been warned that if he says one extremely negative word, he will be shut up and shut out of these videos. Because the last videos that I have made, especially on this subject, he has been, to me, unbearable. He's been an example of an educated lout who's now given to drink, denigrating the ignorance of anyone who talks on this subject that he doesn't like. And, you know, that he's just typical of some of the assy attitudes of the educated. That doesn't matter what they're doing, what kind of life they're leading, their college education gives them the right to see the ignorance of, you know, the religious who, no. And then we've had the separation of church and state going on a great deal more. And this is just nothing more than the reactions to people who were criticized for abortion, their support of legalized abortion, and they have been told, you know, that they've got to protect this right. So these people, like this one, are, you know, you've got to find a way to fight them. Fight the religious, and the educated people and the religious are clashing as they never have before, because never in history has a law been promoted and championed by the educated as legalized abortion. We've got highly thought of people. Our Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, and people like her champion legalized abortion. So we have really got a battle going on here. When you've got people like that to fight, you're really up against it. You've got to think, you've got to get up in the night, you've got to blog, and before you could expect educated people who are used to reading books and so on to read your blog, you know, to read what you wrote. Now, if you happen to disagree with their opinions, you're just nothing but a pro-life fanatic or something of that nature, and they're not even going to read you at all. And so nobody's going to read you. That's right. Nobody is going to read your blog. Nobody's going to read your book. Nobody's going to read your memoirs. Not now, because the educated have put thumbs down on you because you're a fanatic pro-life person. So this is what we got going on in this country. The battle to prove to educated people, that they can be wrong too. They can be led down the road, the easy road, the road where we uphold a bad law. That's what I contend. And we uphold it and we find what's right about it. What is necessary to control the out of control population, to keep this earth. I mean, we look out there and we see stars without number, but there's no room. There's no more room left on this earth. So we've got to eliminate. We have got to make something like legalized abortion available in order to just have a few more years left on this crowded, scarred, beleaguered earth that we've already practically ruined because we can't stop using fuel and destroying our ozone and but I'm saying that I'd rather go down a little sooner with the people than go along with hitting on the most vulnerable victim, the unborn, the fetus, to give us more time, to give us our, if we have to hit on the fetus in order to live a better life on this earth, I'd rather just all of us go down together. That's mine. Because to hit on the fetus, and you don't even know whether you really have to. You're just given up before. You've given up on man. You've given up on his chances of ever controlling anything without a violent solution like death. Like death of the fetus. Oh, we have to have that. And so you get lots of fanatical believers in this, protecting this with everything they've got, their passions. Oh, it's enough to keep, a person awake at nights, looking at the politics and wondering what's going to happen next. I hope we don't get into civil war over it. That is the worst case scenario, just like had to get into loosen the people's grip on slavery as a right, as natural good. So anyway, bye. Read my blog.